Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayanti Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloki Bhavati Naistaki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Satsvarup Das Goswami, Volume 1, A Lifetime in Preparation, India, 1896 to 1965, Chapter 8, New Delhi, Crying Alone in the Wilderness. In Progressive Ambition and Unsatiated Lust, Abhay wrote, there is no dearth of money, but there is dearth of peace in the world. The whole human energy have been diverted to this money-making business. It has certainly increased the cheap money-making capacity of the total population, but the result is that such unrestricted and unlawful inflation of money has created a bad economy and has enabled us to manufacture huge, costly weapons for destroying the result of such cheap money-making business. The authorities of big money-making countries, instead of enjoying peace, are now engaged in making important plans as to how they can save themselves from the modern destructive weapons. And as a matter of fact, a huge sum of money is being thrown into the sea for making an experiment on such dreadful weapons. Such experiments are being carried out not only at huge cost, but also at cost of many poor lives, binding thereby such nations in the laws of karma. This is so true these days. So much of money, every country, not saying only America, every country is spending on weapons, defense, technology, this, that. And if you just reduce that cost by even 50%, the governments can do so much for their citizens. So the poor people, they can do so much. But that's not their agenda. It's just weapons, weapons, and more weapons. Those who unlawfully accumulated money would find it snatched away by taxes for wars and other agents of illusory nature in the shape of medical practitioners, lawyers, tax collectors, societies, constitutions, so-called sadhus, famines, earthquakes, and many such calamities. But still, it doesn't take away the greed of people. And especially in India, the corruption is so high, so rampant. No matter which government, who is governing, people are corrupt. The government officials, they are corrupt, very, very corrupt. And they'll just get the money out of your pocket. And somebody will take money out of their pockets. So what's the point? A miser who hesitated to purchase a copy of Back to Godhead by dictation of illusory nature spent of rupees 20,000 for a week's ailments and died at the end. A similar thing happened when a man who refused to spend a paisa for the service of the Lord spoiled rupees 30,000 in litigation affairs between members of the home. That is the law of nature. Of course, Prabhupada is not trying to scare somebody that if you don't buy this, then this will happen. But this is what happened in his experience. A worker in a New Delhi post office, noticing the title of the magazine Sabhay was sending abroad, took the opportunity to argue his atheistic opinions with Abhay, Srila Prabhupada. The postmaster was an Arya Samaji, and he was talking to me about the paper, Back to God. He raised the question, if we do our duty nicely, then what's the use of worshipping God? If we become honest, if we become moral, if we do not do anything which is harmful to anyone, if we act in this way, then what's the need of this? Because our paper's name was back to Godhead, he was indirectly protesting. What's the use of propagating this philosophy of Godhead if we act nicely? That is Arya Samaji's view how to avoid God. So I replied that if one is not God conscious, he cannot be a moralist, he cannot be truthful, he cannot be honest. This is our point of view. You study the whole world just on these 3 points: morality, honesty, dutifulness. But if he is not God conscious, he cannot continue such things. To revive all these good qualities in society, first have to invoke God conscious. A Delhi man noticing Abhay distributing back to Godhead remarked, "Where is Godhead? Can you show me God?" Abhay replied to the challenge, but he also pondered a deeper reply as he moved throughout the city during the day. On returning to his home, he began an article. Where is Godhead? Is it possible to see? And this also actually happens with all the preachers. Somebody sometimes just asks a question. So that time you might not come up with the best answer. But then the question goes on in the back of the mind of the teacher. What should I have answered? What should I have said? I should have said this. I should have said that. And this is what Prabhupada, he just came back and he wrote an article. In the Secretariat buildings in New Delhi, there is an inscription on the stone that liberty does not descend upon people, but it has to be earned before it can be enjoyed. Actually, this is the fact, and we have seen it, that much sacrifice had to be rendered by the people of India before they could gain Swaraj. But in the matter of Godhead, some irresponsible people ask, where is God? Can you show me? Have you seen God? These are some of the questions put forward by some irresponsible men who want to have everything very cheap. If for attaining a temporary false sense of liberty in this material world, so much labor and sacrifice have to be requisite, is it possible to see Godhead, the absolute truth, so cheaply? To see God means complete liberty from all conditions. But is Godhead an attending orderly so that he may be present at my command? The atheist, however, demands like that, as if Godhead is his paid servant. And he thinks that Godhead is an imaginary thing otherwise. He would have appeared before us as soon as the demand to see him is made. So this is our mistake. People do ask this question, have you seen God? Can you show me God? And in fact, when Prabhupada started ISKCON, many times people, journalists or even regular people, they ask Prabhupada, have you seen God? And Prabhupada had given many different answers. And one answer once he gave was, are you going to believe me if I say yes? And the person, the questioner, he was like, now what to say? So people just like to challenge instead of sincerely inquire. That mood is not just challenging, or just to show how smart I am and how I defeated this Swamiji. One time, while he was walking on a secluded street, pursuing his back to Godhead duties, a stray cow, the kind commonly seen wandering the streets of any Indian town or city, suddenly charged him, goring his side with her horn, and knocked him down. At first, he could not get up, and no one came to help him. As he lay there, he wondered why it had happened. Summer came and the 110-degree heat made it almost intolerable to spend time out of doors. Hot, dust-laden winds blew in the city streets. The street-side hawkers closed their businesses during the day. In early May, during 112-degree heat, a man collapsed in the street and died of heat stroke. But Abhay ignored the heat and the ordinary limitations of the body. One day, while delivering back to Godhead to various addresses in the city, Abhay suddenly began reeling, unconscious, overcome by the heat. At that very moment, an acquaintance of his, a man he had approached during his preaching, happened to be passing by in his car. And he took Abhay to a doctor. The doctor diagnosed him as a victim of heat stroke and ordered him to rest. See, even this middle of heat, he was still preaching and distributing back to God. On June 20th, Abhay produced the 8th consecutive fortnightly edition of the year. Its front page article condemning both materialistic family life and false renunciation of family life. It had been almost 2 years exactly since he had left his home and taken to the One-Press order, and his comments on family life seemed autobiographical as well as scriptural. He quoted a statement by Prahlad Maharaj from Srimad Bhagavatam. Persons who are always disturbed in mind with cares and anxieties of household affairs may quit off the place, which is that black hole temporary abode, family life, to kill one's self and take shelter under the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead by entering into the forest. And he admitted. So Prahlad Maharaj, in that 7th canto, what Prabhupada is referring to, he said, Griham Andakupam. Means if somebody just wants to live in the family life, not take up Krishna consciousness, it's like Andakupam, blind well. Means there is no end. And he admitted the management of a family is more difficult than that of an empire. But trying to avoid family life by living in the jungle without the real spirit of renunciation was monkey renunciation. In the jungle, there are many monkeys who lived naked, ate fruits, and kept female companions. So monkey renunciation. That, as Prabhupada said, they live naked, they eat fruits, and this is what sadhus do, but the monkeys kept female companions. So if the sadhus, they don't have real spirit or real goal, then this is what sometimes, not all the sadhus do that, but sometimes they do that. The real remedy lies in the act of accepting the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. That makes one free from all cares and anxieties of life. That makes one able to see Godhead always and everywhere. Real renounced life, therefore, was possible without going into the forest. Even if one remained in the dress of a householder, he could be freed from cares and anxieties by engaging himself in devotional service. So this is the real renunciation, to be engaged in the service of the Lord. On September 1st, US President Eisenhower condemned the Soviet secret testing of a nuclear bomb equal to 1 million tons of TNT and scoffed at the Soviets' claim for peace. In the Mideast, Egypt's Nasser nationalized the operation of the Suez Canal, causing an international crisis. On September 20th, 81 nations met at the UN to form a new international agency to help tame the atom for peaceful purposes. Abhay saw some of the headlines and heard talk of the latest news from gentlemen he visited. He frankly told them that without Krishna consciousness, the promises of cooperation by the politicians were all phantasmagoria. Because ultimately what every leader is trying to do, trying to save his power, his position, and maybe get some more assets for his country. Everybody doing that. That time also, now also. Problem is we don't have Krishna in the center. Everybody has his own ideas, his own viewpoints in the center. His viewpoints are what? That I should enjoy. I should be the controller, proprietor, enjoyer. Just like in Middle East, Egypt's Nasser nationalized the operation of the Suez Canal. Now, Suez Canal, he didn't make it. It's made by God. And Suez Canal is a major route for sending the goods to Europe. If somebody controls it, he controls Europe's economy. So this is the whole purpose. Nobody even thinks of serving others. Just me, I, me, and mine. That's it. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had said that if only one soul could be turned into a pure devotee, his mission would be a success. Yet sometimes Abhay became overwhelmed when he thought of how small he was, how much work had to be done on behalf of Krishna, and how difficult it was to convince even one conditioned soul. This is how difficult it is. So, there ends the 8th chapter. We can start 9th chapter, a resident of Vrindavan. I was sitting alone in Vrindavan writing. My god brother insisted to me, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So he insisted, not he insisted, practically my spiritual master insisted. He wanted to make me to become a preacher, so he forced me through this god brother. You accept. So unwillingly, I accepted, Srila Prabhupada. So, but he is still in Delhi. The passenger cars behind the locomotive moved forward almost silently, thumping at a slow rhythm over the tracks. The train pulled out of the station, past freight yards, a neighborhood of rundown tenements, the old Delhi fort, the garbage dump in Nizamuddin, with its hundreds of crows and vultures flying overhead, and then past a marble-domed red sandstone mosque. Seated in a third-class compartment, his luggage stowed beneath his seat, Abhay could see factory workers walking near the tracks, carrying their lunches in mental tiffins, and then the factories surrounded by huts of mud and straw. He passed the thatched roofs and tarpaulin tents, the cow-dung fires that smoked in the morning air. The tall stacks of the Indraprastha electrical powerhouses spewed out a different smoke, and sooty black clouds poured back from the locomotive. He saw red and violet wildflowers blooming from bramble bushes at trackside, and beyond he saw the road to Mathura with its border of fruitless kikar trees. It was a morning train to Agra, and there were few passengers. Abhay would be riding as far as Mathura and then traveling by Tanga to Bengal. He had ridden widely the Indian railway, especially in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, when he had traveled on business in Bengal, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh. He had been to Vrindavan several times in his childhood reveries over the train timetables. It had been the first place he had thought of visiting. His first visit in 1925 had been but a brief pilgrimage, which he had been in nearby Agra on business. Then in 1932, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had been in Vrindavan on parikrama. That had been a memorable visit. Abhay had heard him speak at Kosi, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had marked him. He likes to hear. And then at Radhakund, 3 years later, he had been with his spiritual master again. But he had never gone like this to live there. Dressed in a simple white dhoti, his hand in his bead bag, fingering his japa waves, he looked out the window, quietly chanting the holy name. The train passed through the dense thickets of Faridabad and into the agricultural fields with their interspersed patches of wheat, dal, and sugarcane, beginning at trackside and stretching for half a mile to the dry, uncultivated land that continued as far as the eye could see. The train sped faster. Rural villages drifted past the window. An hour out of Delhi, the land was mostly flat and open, dotted with small villages. Occasionally he would glimpse a striking old temple, but mostly it was a land now barren with a few palm trees, now cultivated with irrigated fields, under the expanse of blue sky and blazing sun. For a long time, Abhay had wanted to take shelter in Vrindavan, and now there was no obstacle. His purpose remained the same. He would write back to Godhead and deliver it to the printer in Delhi fortnightly. As long as he could afford to travel, he would return to Delhi to distribute back to Godhead. But he would live in the shelter of Vrindavan. He had in mind the room at the Vanshi Gopalji temple near Keshigarh, a rooftop room that commanded a view of almost all of Vrindavan. And since his 1953 visit from Jhansi, he had kept in touch with the temple manager. So first he stayed there at Vanshi Gopalji temple, a small temple with a small room, and then later he moved to Radha Damodar temple. In moving to Vrindavan, Abhay was following his predecessor spiritual masters. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had their house at Radhakund and had preached in Vrindavan. Gaurkishore Das Babaji, Jagannath Das Babaji, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur had lived either in Vrindavan or in Navadvip, near the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya and his immediate followers had an especially intimate relationship with Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya had commissioned Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami to uncover the places of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan that over the centuries had become lost. Rup and Sanatan had left their prestigious government posts and gone to live in Vrindavan. Dressed in simple loincloths, they had lived without fixed residence, staying each night under a different tree. They and Jiv Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, and Gopal Bhatt Goswami, known and worshipped as the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, had compiled a voluminous literature on Krishna Bhakti. They had inspired wealthy Vaishnava patrons to erect Vrindavan's great temples. Govindji, Madan Mohan, Radha Damodar, Radha Raman. At Radhakund, shortly after Lord Chaitanya's departure from the world, Raghunath Das Goswami had chanted 100,000 names of Krishna and discoursed for several hours daily on the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. There also Krishnadas Kaviraj had compiled the Chaitanya Charitamrita, describing the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Even those Gaudiya Vaishnavas who did not live in Vrindavan kept Vrindavan always in their hearts and proclaimed its glories. The Chaitanya Charitamrita describes the great ecstasy Lord Chaitanya felt while traveling from Puri to Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mind was absorbed in ecstatic love at Jagannath Puri, but when he passed along the road on the way to Vrindavan, that love increased 100 times. The Lord's ecstatic love increased 1,000 times when he visited Mathura, but increased 100,000 times when he wandered in the forests of Vrindavan. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was elsewhere, the very name of Vrindavan is sufficient to increase his ecstatic love. Now, when he was actually traveling in Vrindavan forest, his mind was absorbed in great ecstatic love day and night. He ate and bathed simply out of habit. Otherwise, his mind was always in Vrindavan, in great ecstatic. Vrindavan is an earthly manifestation of Lord Krishna's eternal spiritual abode, which the Lord himself describes in Bhagavad Gita. There is another nature which is eternal and is transcendental to manifested and unmanifested matter. It is never annihilated. It is a supreme destination. When one goes there, he never comes back. That is my supreme abode. Krishna's activities of eternity, bliss and knowledge and his abode, Golok Vrindavan, are described in many Vedic literatures. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who's tending the cows, yielding all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems, where he is surrounded by millions of purpose trees and always served in great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or gopis. Although Lord Krishna's abode, Golok Vrindavan, is far beyond the material world, when Krishna comes to earth, he displays his eternal abode in the Vrindavan of India. That 84 square mile tract in North India is identical with the eternal world in the spiritual sky. So identical, non-different. But it just, we don't have those eyes to see it. We are not pure enough. So still, whenever we go to Vrindavan, it has a positive impact on the consciousness. But mood should be of service. That's all. To live and die in Vrindavan guarantees the devotee's transfer to the eternal spiritual world. The residents of Vrindavan, even the animals, are exalted. At the end of life, they will transfer to Golok Vrindavan. Lord Brahma therefore prayed that he might take birth as a clump of grass on the outskirts of Vrindavan, so that these pure devotees would purify him with the dust from their feet. And Vaishnava Shastras declare that even by only a brief visit to Vrindavan, one can realize the Supreme Lord in his heart. Chaitanya Charitamrita states, like the transcendental body of Lord Krishna, Gokul is all-pervading, infinite and supreme. It expands both above and below without any restriction. That abode is manifested within the material world by the will of Lord Krishna. It is identical to that original Gokul. They are not two different bodies. The land there is touchstone Chintamani, and the forests abound with desire trees. Although material eyes see it as an ordinary place, the ideal place to execute Krishna consciousness is Vrajbhumi or Vrindavan, where people are naturally inclined to love Krishna, and Krishna is naturally inclined to love them. So that is Vrindavan. I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.